Hello and welcome everybody to the June 29th, 2023 edition of the KubeStellar Community Meeting. Welcome. Just to get started here, we have not too much of a packed agenda. We're going to do some issue triage and talk about some other items here. Just to get started, we do abide by a contributor code of conduct. So as contributors and maintainers in the CNCF community, in an interest of fostering an open and welcoming community, we pledge to respect all people who contribute through reporting issues, posting feature requests, updating documentation, submitting pull requests or batches, and other activities. We are committed to making participation in the CNCF community a harassment-free experience for everyone, regardless of level of experience, gender identity and expression, sexual orientation, disability, personal appearance, body size, race, ethnicity, age, religion, or nationality. Essentially, it just means please be nice to each other here in this form. We do abide by a little code here that where we raise hands if we've got questions, and I try to call on people, or other people try to call on people when they see those hands raised. So please be patient with us if we miss you, and if not, just take your hand down and raise it again, and typically we see it. So just some housekeeping out front. Just an FYI, last Friday we did successfully manage to move over to our new repository, our new home. It is now we are now at KubeStellar, so github.com/KubeStellar. And we have two repositories within that organization. One is called KubeFlex, which one of our contributors, Paladatori, will be giving us a lowdown on what that is in 2 weeks' time, and KubeStellar, which is our main repo, and KubeStellar/KubeStellar is where you can find us now. So thanks again to everybody who took part in helping us move and migrate. It was a tremendous success. So thank you very much. Okay, without further ado, let's get back to our community meeting. Okay, so today we'll do a little run through of issues and PRs. Oh, if you haven't done so already, please go to kubestellar.io/agenda and you'll get to this document. If you did not already join our mailing list, you won't have the ability to add any information to it. So if you need to get that, go to kubestellar.io/join us to get access, and that'll also get you our regular meeting cadence added to your calendar. So what we're going through today, we don't have Paolo available to us, so he's not going to be giving us an introduction today, but he will in 2 weeks. And of course, nominate topics on this list if you'd like to add anything. So I think first up we have an issue here from Alec Slominski talking about a high-level roadmap. And so that's first up. Alec?
Yes, so if you just click on it,
Yes, sure, I can. Second.
so we can, see, this is just to record that I think there is ongoing discussion. I just linked it a few minutes ago to the, related issue, how to explain to users and potential contributors, not only what is KubeStellar today, but what they can expect, kind of like which features and use cases are first to be available, especially with the transition from KCP or everything that we are doing right around explaining what they can get today and what they should be expecting in future. That's pretty much it. I think we can start on that roadmap, but I expect it to be longer road to get the full roadmap high level created. Just I think would be very good to have it linked from the top of the website. As I talked to some people, that's what they expect, or that's what they were asking about. Where is KubeStellar today and where is it going? Of course, roadmap can change, but to have some kind of indicators for it.
Very good. Yes, I think it's wise of us to have that advertised, generally speaking. So I think you've already got a comment in here from Mike, and I've read it. I also saw that there was that we also have been working on defining what exactly is our roadmap going ahead. The initial roadmap that Mike provided to us, as you linked to there, does do two things very well, and it was intended to do those things. One is to explain, actually, this one does not. Is it in details? Yeah. So in this details memo, this is interesting because one, it explains exactly what we are focused and targeted on doing for that particular POC. And it also explains specifically what is not or what is excluded. So I think that in terms of road mapping, I'd like to put my hat in the ring and say it would be nice to see this type of information also reflected in our roadmap as well. Not just from a categorical standpoint, but also from the details of what exactly we plan to include and what we plan to exclude. So, yeah, so very good point, Alec. Anyone else with any comments or questions in this area? Okay. All right. Thank you, Alec, for your contribution. So let's move on to the next. Mike, I think I thought I saw, and I don't see it in here. You did leave a note about talking about the CRD puller and what have you, but I don't see it reflected in this agenda.
Right. I tried to put it in the KubeBind agenda. Um, they're not quite as fleshed out in their organizational status. I'm not aware of a community meeting series. I did create an issue. It may have been ill-informed. I was asking about the CRD puller and the API gen, but maybe the API gen is unnecessary. Because I just noticed this morning there is maybe some automatic derivation from CRDs. Um, so I think that's for KCP and or KubeBind. So that's where I tried to put it.
Okay, so that explains where my confusion came from. I was looking at the KCP agenda, and now that they're on the same day, I didn't even bother to look to see I was in the wrong repo. Okay, that was my mistake. Okay, thank you. All right, does anybody else have any issues or information they would like to share with the community before I get started on triage? Going once, going twice. Okay. All right. So Friday marks the end of our first sprint. And so anything that's we've got number of items that are listed here that are in sprint one that are either in new to do or in progress. So we have to figure out if these are closing or not. And if they're not closing, then we'll bump them over to sprint two. What I thought I'd address first is the no sprint area because there's a few issues that are starting to back up that are not in progress or not assigned to a milestone. So I'd like to go through this a bit, and if we don't have a milestone associated that we would like to cover it in, that's okay. But if we do have something, then I'd like to try and clear it up. There's quite a few of these listed here, and maybe even if anybody's interested in tagging along and putting their name on it, that would be great too. So I wanted to let's start off with 705. So Mike, you opened this one. This is about and I think it's a great idea. I want to explain it a little bit to the others on the call.
Sure. So the Mailbox Watch library implements part of our interface, which is an informer on the full objects that are returned to the center. And currently we have this implemented in Go and only in Go. We have colleagues who are, I'm not quite sure what the name of their project is. I was calling it Vila, but I think actually Vila is not exactly their project. But it's the guys working on placement for optimizing. They say carbon, but technically it could be anything. Um, anyway, they currently are their code is written in Python, so they can't use this Go library. I hear that they plan to switch to Go. Um, that's a timing issue, and of course, again, that's just one example, right? In general, if we want to support a broad community, we need to support more than one programming language.
Yeah, good point. So, do you see this being prioritized as something that we want to cover in pre-September or post-September, or do you have any kind of
I think I want to
gauge?
yeah, so this is I'm looking for input, okay? I want to
Yeah,
hear from other people. Um First off, I want to hear from these particular people how what they're thinking about their move to Go. You know, if they're moving soon enough, then that's not that doesn't make this a priority. If other people who are not in Go and not moving to Go, uh, need this interface, then that makes this a priority.
right. Okay. So I guess we need some more time with this. So I'm not going to assign it to a milestone as of yet, right? Because it's not queued up.
Right. We
Is
need to
that
hear
fair?
about urgency
Yeah.
from users.
Right. Okay, good. All right. So we'll leave that. We'll table that for now. All right. Okay, prereq install code. So this is Kevin. You opened this one. So Kevin, I understand that this is you're under investigation here. Do you this is something that's probably near term, right? So do you think this is something that we could put in the next sprint by August 1st?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I may
Would it
actually,
be
you
would it
can
be
assign
okay?
it to me. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I may actually
All right,
have it done by next week. So,
great. All right. Thanks, Kevin, for signing up for your first issue. Appreciate it. All right. Let's see. Next one. Ed KubeStellar. I think we already went through that. Bug scheduler is wrong name. Mike, care to explain this?
Sure. This is particularly sticks out like a sore thumb when we talk about working with MCAD, which has a scheduler, right? We use the word scheduler for a thing that is, I think using the word scheduler is confusing people or potentially confusing people because the thing that we call the scheduler is not really making any choices. It's just evaluating a predicate. And so I think we should have a more um, restricted, less a name that doesn't suggest it's making choices. So that when we talk to people, and they hear about the MCAD scheduler, they don't also hear that we've got a different scheduler. That's just confusing.
Okay, and so are you opposed to, you've already made mention of where resolver, and we've heard it, I think, quite a bit here, so I'd be okay in moving in that direction. I mean, and I'm only one vote, obviously, but is that what you're proposing here?
That's the most obvious proposal, but again, I'm open to other suggestions.
Okay, let's put it to let's see if we have enough people here consensus wise to do a vote actively, and let's see if we can move this ahead a bit. So is there anybody on the call? So let's put this, we're gonna put issue number 690 to a vote. I'm proposing that we put it to vote, and what's on the table is moving away from the word scheduler and moving towards where resolver. Uh, and so would anybody like to support that by raise of hands? See, one vote positive, two votes positive. I'll give my vote positive. 3, 4, 5. Okay, we have majority. Okay, Mike, please go ahead with your change as you suggest here. Vote of community yielded majority in favor of where resolver. All right, Mike, can I sign that to you?
Yes.
Okay. Add assignees, Mike. All right, and is it okay if I put it in sprint 2?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, let's move on. All right, add KubeStellar high level. We got that prereq example. Okay, good. This is a good one. Okay, the latest version of Go is 1.2, and the doc executable of example 1 failed because it was looking for it doesn't care what version of Go. is listed or is being run in the local system. So therefore, verify go versions crashed. So Mike, I can yeah, Franco, did you have your hand up? Or is that your vote and you just got to pull it down?
I forgot to take it down. Sorry,
Okay,
my bad.
I put it down. Okay, thanks. All right, so Mike, I can take this one. This is my issue, and I will work on it this month up ahead. I didn't port all the items over there for the prereq check yet into Doxecutable, so that was my half-baked solution, and I will take responsibility for it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, 689. All right, let's move on. Move beyond 23Q1. Okay. Uses of data types for inventory, because that POC was defined when the world was enthused about KCP and one concrete solution was adequate for that POC. Now we need to update and expand our thinking about inventory. We're working with other projects that bring their own considerations to inventory. So Mike, yeah, completely agreed that inventory should be a priority. So that's just my vote. Is there anybody else on the Mike, would you like to explain the position a bit more, or do you think it's self-explanatory?
I would just add a little bit of context, right? We are working with other projects that need more from inventory, right? Like MCAD, for example, and Turbo. They need information about the execution clusters coming back. And we made a particular choice of inventory that is, looked good at the time, but now is looking kind of out in left field. There are other inventories in the world. So, I think we should be thinking about moving to a different form of inventory, or perhaps even more appropriately, like we started to do last year, have some agility in exactly how inventory is represented.
Okay. So how
I
do
should
we
say
proceed with-
modularity rather than agility, but anyway.
Yeah, Mike, how do we proceed with this since it's not literally a binary kind of thing? Is it something that you want to bring up and put in front of the community in a future meeting to discuss further, or what do you think is the right way to go?
Well, yeah, clearly there's some discussion. I'm not, for example, sure how much responsibility we should take, since we are working with other projects that are fairly opinionated about inventory. Maybe we shouldn't try to take on, maybe we shouldn't ask everything to go through one inventory, or maybe we should. I'm not sure. This needs more thinking and discussion. I'm not quite sure how to do that.
Okay. Yeah, so I wanted to bring up a thought here because I wanted to ask Braulio specifically, the work that we've been doing with multi-cluster is Braulio, how much of a reliance do you think? So let me ask, let me see if I can ask the question this way. So if we had inventory where we had capabilities or capacity listed for a given cluster, would that be something that an MCAD or an Octopus or a Turbomatic would look there as a system of record to say I should or should not select this cluster to deploy something on based upon, or do you feel it, or is it your feeling that the logic, and as Mike kind of presupposes, and I think assumes, and rightly so, that the project or solution that is going to be using KubeStellar would have its own inventory and not rely on us to do any of that in terms of a clearinghouse? What is your thoughts on that, Braulio? Braulio, you're on mute if you're trying to. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I think that there is I don't have a clear answer for it right now, but I think that there is a correlation between the two inventory. So the MCAT so needs to know which clusters are available per se, and then there is a correlation that we need to deploy the KubeStellar syncers and create the sync target and the location per se. So definitely we need a single source of truth per se. But the question is that we need to make sure that the inventory, the information that, for example, if each application has its own inventory, that they have all the relevant information that is necessary for us to use in KubeStellar and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of a much larger discussion.
Yeah. Mike, what are your thoughts about synchronization of other inventory modules from other systems of record? What are your thoughts about that? Do you think that there's a
I think
desire to do that?
you're using different words to say the issue I was trying to talk about. So,
Yeah.
right, the question, maybe you're making it a little bit clearer and more explicit. We can make a distinction between the system of record and then other systems that have copies or projections of subsets of that information. KubeStellar's, is a system that is designed to be only a consumer of inventory. So it could be driven by a projection from some other system of record. So for example, one possible solution architecture here is KubeStellar defines one representation of inventory that it consumes. And when we integrate with some other project that has its own system of record for inventory, that that integration includes creating the projector that projects the other project's inventory into the form that KubeStellar consumes.
Anybody else have any idea, any thoughts or ideas they'd like to express about inventory?
So, the approach we took last year was rather than having something that projects a data structure, I put some code that can consume from other system of record, try to introduce some modularity into the code so that we wouldn't have to project the data structures. But that does say that, we have to, in the running code, we have to integrate the consumer of whatever other system of record is involved. And that is, a more invasive, less flexible solution architecture. So, that's kind of but it's potentially more efficient because we don't have to duplicate the data. So, that's the trade-off I'm kind of looking for some feedback on.
Anybody in the community want to share an opinion on this? Okay, Mike. I guess we've got to stew on this a bit more. All right, I'm not going to put it on any milestone or any ownership at this point. Okay, folks, let's move on. All right, Mike, this one's a bug that you open. The placement translator spams its log entries with the following and the corresponding core cluster involved in one of the mailbox workspaces. It has no objects. In fact, not even AP binding that defines jobs. And at the image place. Okay, so Mike, who did the original implementation of edge placement? Was that June?
No, the placement translator is something that I wrote.
Place translate. Okay. All right. All right. So
But
Mike, is this like a to do that you're looking at, or what are you thinking? Where are you going with this?
So yeah, I think it's a practical problem to
Mhm.
have this thing, always logging error messages that are not really errors. The problem is the error messages are not under our control. They come from lower layers in the Kubernetes libraries that we're importing. So
Right.
we don't get the option to not log them as errors.
I see.
And so, but practically speaking, it's bad. We need to do something about it.
Okay. All right. Alternatives are doing it better. Make part of the placement translator that resolves the what predicates, look for the actual existing objects and only put their kinds in the cross product. Okay. Make the placement translator aware of how resources are defined, and there are three ways: CRD, API, being built into the workspace, and monitor and interpret those, filtering the cross products to only include resources. Okay. Make the placement translator directly monitor the resources defined in each mailbox workspace and only those in the cross products. So Mike, I think what's common to all three, as you've pointed out, and I was thinking the same, is to filter the cross product. But is that a function that can be built and then we can add let's say a configuration to that object to say what it will and will not filter in the future? Or is that too basic an understanding?
So I think we don't want to ask users to provide any more configuration. I
Right.
think the code has the information it needs. The point of these alternatives are three different ways the code could get the information it needs, or extract, or digest, or make, somehow get the information from where it already is into a place where it can stop the creation. The problem is the creation of these informers that are never going to find objects. So those three alternatives are ways of ultimately filtering the creation of those informers. So yeah. So it's really a debate, I think, about internal structure in the placement translator.
Right. Based upon my rudimentary understanding here, I mean, I would go for number two, Roman numeral 2. Is that is there a drawback to doing it that way, or are you just looking for some opinions to
Okay, yeah,
support?
I could have written more about, um, but I did because I haven't had time to really taken the time yet to review. But there are runtime cost implications of these things, and also code complexity. I think actually alternative 3 is probably the one that is going to be, I think 3 is going to be simpler to code than 2. I'm concerned that 1 might not actually provide all the coverage we want,
Yeah, I was thinking the same.
right? But 2 and 3 are more precise, but I think 3 is simpler to code.
Okay.
It's probably going to be more expensive at runtime, but maybe not. I wanted to look at that before I wrote something about that.
All right, so I agree with you on number one. Does anybody in the community have an opinion they want to share about which choice Mike should pursue further? I'm voting for number two, but does anybody else have any thoughts or opinions about which of these three options might be a good next step for Mike to take on this issue? Okay. All right, Mike. So, I mean, if I'm the only one voting here, then I'm gonna say take a look at two. Um, if you want, would you like to put it to a vote here for
No, no,
others,
no.
or
I think again, I want to review runtime costs. I think
Okay.
that's for me, the thing that's going to tell me which I prefer. I think, just I already know that 3 will be simpler to code. And
Okay.
so if it's not significantly more expensive, I think there's no question. And even if it is more expensive, I think our most precious resource right now is developer time. So I might argue for 3, even if it is more expensive at runtime.
Okay. Very good. So, is it okay if I assign this to you?
Yes.
Okay. Mike, thank you. And then, is it okay if I put it in by August 1st?
Yes, it's a practical problem. I think we need to do something soon.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you for that. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, we weren't ready to cover 683 command checks Go version. Okay, KubeStellar command insist that the user have Go on their path and a recent version at that. This is not logical. A user of KubeStellar does not need to run Go. Okay, invoke KubeStellar start without Go on your path. Okay. Okay, so Mike, any comments on this? Is this something that we can go ahead with? Or are you looking for people to support you on
Well,
this?
yeah, this ties back to another issue, which is really the organization of the documentation. The problem is, you know, contributors need Go, users do not need Go,
Yeah,
but we
true.
funnel them all through this
Okay.
KubeStellar command, and we
Right.
expect the KubeStellar command to carry the weight of making sure contributors have the right version of Go. And I think that's misplaced. So really the full version of this is a bit of a doc reorg so that we're not funneling users through anything that requires a particular version of Go.
All right. Okay. Is this something you think we should punt for now and maybe come back to it another time? I don't want to, but I don't know how to do that without, opening up this bigger circle around documentation at the moment. Yes, Franco.
Yeah, are we sure that the latest release 0.3 still requires Go? It doesn't require Docker anymore, for sure. I don't think it requires Go in KubeStellar start. But I may be wrong. Maybe
there was this other issue that we saw earlier already, where there is something that's checking for Go, there are two things that check for Go. One checks, do you have any version of Go at all? And then there's another one that checks, do you have version 1.19? And you run into those in the quick start.
for sure in version
Or maybe it was example
0.2.2, I'm not sure it still does it in release 0.3. That's what I'm asking. Because Docker was checked in release 0.2.2, but not in 0.3, for example. And I'm
Andy,
wondering.
can you go back to that other issue again? I forgot. Was it example 1 or quick start?
Okay, are you talking about a specific issue? You want me to bring them the documentation? I'm not sure which way.
No, the issue with that you took about the not checking for the specific version of Go.
Yeah, I think it's in here.
Anyway, Franco, I believe that was in the latest that was reported from.
Is this the one you're referring to?
Yeah. Oh, I don't think it says there, but I think it was probably I was testing the latest. So I was testing I think 0.3. Yes, that's the one. So it's example 1 in release 0.3. Okay, so Andy, why don't you assign this to me, and I will suggest a reorg that moves this, moves the Go check out of KubeStellar into someplace that's appropriate for contributors and not users.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay. Yeah, do you want to take this longer term?
No, this is no. We should just straighten this out now. It's just a point of friction that we shouldn't be imposing on users.
Okay. Thank you for taking that. I'll put it. I just assigned it to you and into Sprint 2. Okay. Yeah, Braulio, you had a comment?
Yes. So I believe, Mike, we had that discussion before with the cube. I got KubeStar to remove the dock and Go, and I was just quickly. I think we have already removed that, and I was just now looking at the code, and I don't see those checks and more.
Franco?
I agree with Braulio. In fact, one of the reasons I mentioned before, I was trying to Dockerize the code, right? The reason why I didn't publish it in 0.2.2 was because of Go and Docker requirements. I didn't want to install Docker and Go in the container. But in the latest using 0.3, I did not need Go. I did not need Docker inside the container. So I think it was removed in 0.3. So it's mute for the new versions. That's all I'm saying.
Well, that doesn't explain the bug that I opened about the check for 1.19 Go failing then. But Andy, let's fix this. Let's just pursue this offline.
Yeah, we got to hit this. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
This also relates back to the issue I raised because those commands are all in a common subfile for prereqs. So that will need to be addressed in this also. So
Cool.
that it's up to date.
Yeah, okay,
So-
yeah, right. Maybe the problem is it's in the docs and not in the KubeStellar command. Anyway, let's, assign it to me. I'll follow up offline and we'll get it straightened out.
So, yeah, let's triage together if we can. So Franco, Kevin, Mike, Braulio, we'll all stay in touch on these interrelated issues and try and work them out. Okay, great. Okay, kubectl plugin should be based on proper arg parsing. So do we have a problem with arg parsing? Okay, the kubectl plugins, aside from the Syncer Gen 1, are currently bash scripts that do some generic parsing of kubectl flags. This is a more complex program that should be done in bash.
Oh, typo. I should meant to say than rather than that.
Yeah.
This is more complex than should be done in bash.
More complex than should be done. Okay. Okay, it needs to be written to rely on a standard library that actually understands kubectl flags, such as, oh, okay, there is one. All right. Okay. So this is our specific plugins, right? Yeah. Okay. Mike, if this is something that can, I'm thinking I might throw my hat in the ring here. I'd like to learn how to do this.
Great.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to be any good at it, but I'm going to try. All right. Let's see if I can get this into Sprint 2. Yeah, I'm going to give that a shot. All right. Godspeed. All right, let's move on. No established way to bootstrap script before release. Oh yeah, so let's talk through this one. We need to up our before release testing game. So Mike, I did the most recent release for .3. I don't know that I was necessarily impacted by this, but maybe you can convince me otherwise.
Yeah, so actually, it's the issue has gotten broader since I wrote this in May with the introduction of the executable docs.
Yeah.
And as you know, we tripped ourselves up on that with the introduction with the attempt to do a new release. Actually, in particular, we tripped ourselves up with the introduction of a new release branch. We spent a few days recovering from that, and in fact, we still haven't finished recovering. Actually, our release 0.3 is broken because it references the version 0.2.1 of the Syncer image.
That's been fixed. That was fixed last night.
No, release 0.3.0 has not been changed. It's immutable. It can't be fixed. We might make a release 0.3.1.
Oh, you mean are you talking about the tag?
So let me be precise.
Yeah, you're talking about the tagged release. Yeah, okay.
So, and this
Not
is
the
part of the
branch.
issue here, right? The general approach is a release is supposed to be a commit. Commit is immutable. So you don't get to fix it after you make it. But we have this problem that we want in a few ways to have a release reference itself. Okay, so that creates a problem. You either have to anticipate something and create something that references something that doesn't exist yet for a while, right? Or you have to make stuff that only refers to stuff that existed previously, which forces you to make releases in pairs then, one that has almost everything you want and exists and can be referenced, and then you update all the references to it, and then so your second release is basically the same as your first, except that the references are updated to refer to the first of the two.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, so here.
And the
So
other thing I wanted to say about this is
Mhm.
right now we do have stuff, that can only there's stuff we do that involves releases, right? Everything that fetches a release can only fetch a release. So, for example, it can't be tested in CI because it's not a release. We don't make a release for every PR. Okay. I think, part of the idea here is we need to increase the testing that's in CI. So, for example, we should be testing the Bootstrap script in CI, but we can't because the Bootstrap script only fetches releases.
Yeah. Yeah, it's chicken
So,
and
in particular, if the Bootstrap script had an option to fetch a commit rather than a release, we could, test the Bootstrap script in CI.
right. Franco?
Yeah, I have an opinion on this, and I think I have a comment, but also I think it's related to the title of this issue. I think the title is not quite correct. And let me explain you why. The Bootstrap script does not and will not be changed or updated during the releases, right?
Right.
Documentation is different. It was updated right now only because we did something extremely dangerous and extremely major, which was change the repo name, right? But tomorrow release 0.4 comes out, the Bootstrap script will not change. 0.5 comes out, the Bootstrap script will not change. The KubeStellar start command changes, the Bootstrap script will not change. When we remove KCP and we don't require KCP anymore, then we'll have to do some surgery on the Bootstrap script just to remove that part. But the Bootstrap script does not need to change with the new releases. When you want to test a new release, then you just issue the same Bootstrap script, changing the parameter at the end. Now, the documentation needs to follow the release, but not the Bootstrap script. That's the ideal approach in my mind, right? The Bootstrap script does something simple, which is download the tar file and unpack it for you and run the start command. That's it, right? That should not change unless we do major changes.
Mm. No, and I witnessed that with the latest release that I did. Thank you, Franco. Mike?
Yes, so we made the repo switch independently of making the new release, right? We made the repo switch last week, we made the new release this week, and they are separate steps, and I recognize that. And the concern here specifically about the Bootstrap script is it does interact with the stuff that it fetches. So, I think Franco said it correctly, which is it only needs to change when there's a, well, I don't forget exactly what words he said. The way I would put it is, it does in principle need to change sometimes, depending on if there's a change in what it fetches, in the way that it gets used, right? So potentially we will be wanting to make changes that require a change in the Bootstrap script.
Mhm.
That's part of it. And I guess, yeah, so I think we do need to have a technology here that allows us to make changes in what the Bootstrap script does, and we need to have testing.
Mhm. Okay, Franco?
While I don't disagree overall about your generality of your statement, in practice, again, if you have a new release, the Bootstrap script does not need to change per se. And if you want to test your new release, you can use the current Bootstrap script. If you want to test a new, for example, you want to remove KCP, you don't need a new release, right? You can test it against what you have, because, for example, if KubeStellar is already running, it will not do anything, right? So it's trying to ensuring the stuff is running. So if you want to run your own KCP new version for testing, you can run the same Bootstrap script and just it will respect your KCP running, for example, right? Try to do that way. So perhaps I'm also not in disagreeing that we could have some automated script, automatic testing, but I'm not quite sure the effort, how to do it, right? So if the effort is reasonable, why not? I can help, but I'm not understanding right now what I could do if I had to help, right, on this topic.
So, let's just agree, right? The Bootstrap script is the mere making a new release does not in and of itself require a change to the Bootstrap script. However, we do want to be able to make changes that will require a change in the Bootstrap script. For example, if we switch from using KCP to using what Haifa is developing instead of that, that will require a change in the Bootstrap script. So we do need to have a way of fetching, using, and testing the Bootstrap script that allows us to make changes in the Bootstrap script.
Okay, so I think maybe there is a more generic, at least how I'm interpreting the discussion is maybe we just need to put some kind of a test case around the Bootstrap script to begin with, just as a starter. Is that a correct interpretation as maybe a logical first step? Franco?
I think while we depend on KCP, it's a particular case, but I think ideally the Bootstrap script is just a convenient script that should do something extremely simple. A lot of checking, a lot of dependency installation, and stuff like that should be incorporated in the KubeStellar start or whatever command, or init or prepare or whatever, right? The Bootstrap script, in my mind, should be simplified going forward. Once we can remove KCP, right? Installation, KCP running, that would be already a big chunk of it. And I think the Bootstrap script should simply do a curl of a tar file, untarring, and a command that we agree should be run on KubeStellar, right? To do whatever is necessary. So everything gets moved to the script, everything can be tested from the command line during the development. You don't need a binary, right? As long as you have your stuff locally, it will simplify the Bootstrap. It's just a convenience. For example, when I installed KubeStellar in the Docker file, it's so convenient to have a command to do so, right? Instead of untarring doing stuff in the Docker file. But it's a convenient script, right? So we should be able to spell out what the Bootstrap script is doing. I think it's very simple. It's curl, untar, execute this command.
Okay. Thank you, Franco. Mike, and then let's we've gone a couple times on this, so let's move on after this comment. Thanks. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Mike.
so just to summarize, I think what Franco is saying is that he's proposing that the functionality, much of the functionality of the current Bootstrap script be shifted into the KubeStellar command. And that's conceivable. It should, I think it just should be understood in those terms. And it I'll stop there.
Okay. Okay. All right, I'll leave that in there as info. I'm not sure. Maybe we pick this back up again next meeting and see if we've got some more clarity on it. Would that be all right by both of you, Franco and Mike?
Yes.
I think Franco had it. Okay, yeah. Okay, good. All right, let's leave it there. All right, next up, 401. ESPW create delete should be bundled with install uninstall, not start stop. Okay. Mike, is this a something that you think you need consensus on before making the change, or is it something that you'd like to discuss?
Well, a little discussion. So this is partway resolved in that there is now when this was written, there was no KubeStellar init command. Now that we have a KubeStellar init command, this relieves some of the pressure here. I think bundling the init function with the start function is not bad, but I think bundling uninstall with stop is bad. So I think there is work to do here. So yeah, I think so. Yeah, if we can just agree that I think the stop should not be deleting the currently the ESPW. We already have scripting for tearing everything down. We can let that carry that weight, and it should not be bundled with stop.
Okay. So the only question I had is that I think we're doing some create delete separately in the documentation. And is this going to make have a ripple effect through the doc for the examples? Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, Franco.
Perhaps asking a clarification. I am not aware of the new KubeStellar init command, which is also not used in the Bootstrap. So I'm wondering, should be used in the Bootstrap, by the way, as a continuation of the previous discussion, right? I was not involved in the init and install. I didn't see it in the documentation either, so I'm not sure how that's supposed to be used.
So it is in the documentation of the KubeStellar command, and it is documented. And the start will do an init if it hasn't already been done. So that's why the Bootstrap is functional without using init. But I think logically, init is different from start and stop. People should be able to start and stop controllers without uninstalling stuff, right? That's just the normal way of doing things. So that's kind of the point here. So it would not be bad. I mean, given currently that there is a Bootstrap script that people read, I think it would not be bad to change it to use init as well as start, because that teaches what we want. And as for Andy's question, I don't remember whether we currently have any docs that say that actually anything executable that does stop. I know we have stuff that deletes stuff. So I don't know.
Braulio?
I think that this issue was created on May 17th, if I saw correctly. And I
Yep.
think this issue between deleting the SPS was also already solved and I was just looking at the latest release. So yeah, we are no longer deleting ESPS workspace in the KubeStellar command.
Okay. Mike, any answer to that or? Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, we'll have to see. All right. I'll add the comment and I'll put the comment in here. Should change. Bootstrap. Okay, so looks like we can start to close in on this in the month ahead. I'd like to put myself, Mike. Oh, Franco, you had a question?
Actually, yes, I have an opinion about moving it to Bootstrap. My opinion would be not to move it in Bootstrap because, again, it goes with my philosophy to simplify the Bootstrap. Otherwise, we need to replicate all the checking of the requirements, stuff like that. The Bootstrap would have to check if the init has been running or whatever to ensure. It would be better to keep it in the KubeStellar and, having one command to say, okay, run KubeStellar, and if you need to do something, you do it. That's my opinion. Otherwise, we have to kind of replicate some of the checking, right, to ensure that the init has been run before or not, right? KubeStellar, it's already doing that. If it's not run, then it's running it.
Mike?
If it's exposed to users. If we sweep it all to someplace that's not exposed to users, then it doesn't really matter.
Okay. So here's what I propose we do. I'll add Mike, you, myself, and Franco, and Braulio as assignees to this, and let's see if we can hack on it and get it closed by the end of August. Is anybody not by end of August, by end of July? Is anybody opposed to that I just called out? Okay, very good. I'll go ahead and do that. Franco. And let's see if we can get this done by end of the month in July. Okay, cool. All right, very good. Okay, so we're hitting the top of the hour, so I don't want to go any further here. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to raise to the community at this point? Okay. All right. So one last note. If you might see behind
Actually,
me-
Andy, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I didn't reach my mute button fast enough.
Go ahead.
I did want to raise the idea of recognizing the special case of when edge placement is intended to direct a workload to exactly one edge cluster. And
Summary
in that
status.
case, return the status into the object in the status section in the object in the workload management workspace. Or, oh, and there's also the terminology. We were going to revisit the terminology, but we're out of time to do that. Anyway, so I did, we're out of time, but yeah, I think that makes sense. Also, it relieves some pressure on implementing the mailbox watch in other languages. In particular, if we're focused on the use cases where there's some higher level thing that's using this for executing or transporting to just one place that a higher level scheduler, for example, has chosen. I think this is a common use case. And we can make everybody's life easier if we do that.
Yeah, I think Mike, if I'm not speaking for all of the community, but I think one of the highest priorities we have right now is to get the status propagation squared away in the next couple weeks. I'd like to see if we could by the next community meeting have a discussion about how you thought through the problem and potentially even solved it. So that's just one of my wishes, but I'll leave it to others to express that as well. Okay. Mike, is there a status propagation issue that you're tracking? I thought there was one, right?
Yeah, I thought there was one too.
Okay. Might be in there. Okay, I'm gonna go, so folks, just as a matter of mechanics, I'm gonna move what's open in Sprint 1 over to Sprint 2, and we'll pick this back up in 2 weeks' time. We'll do some more triage, and hopefully we'll have relieved some of the back pressure and understand a little bit better where we're heading next, okay? So thanks all of you for attending. By the way, for KubeStellar, there is a Star Wars theme that's starting to emerge. So I've got a little Lego Star Wars in my background. I know that there's a few others. There's a BB-8 I see on the screen behind Kevin. So yeah, bring your Star Wars Legos or any other kind of Star Wars stuff to the next meeting and show it off. We're going to be doing that as a giveaway in KubeCon North America when we visit there, whether we're in the booth or in our individual talks. So I look forward to seeing what creativeness you can bring, and I'll be sure to try and show up with some more myself. All right, thanks everybody. Have a good day. Thanks for attending.